This morning we start a whole new series of studies in the book of Joshua. And if you will turn with me to that book, we'll begin to look this morning at this remarkable man and the remarkable amount of work that he was given to do at a critical time in the history of God's people, the nation of Israel. We're looking this morning at Joshua chapter 1, and I hope in the weeks ahead to work through the book bit by bit and to learn the things that apply to us as God's people in the 1980s. But we're going well before the 1980s, back to the birth of Christ, and 1,300 years before that, more or less, to the 13th century BC. And we're in the 1200s BC when we read the words that we begin with this morning. And if you found the book of Joshua, I'd ask you to turn a couple pages to the left to Deuteronomy chapter 31, where we set the scene for the story which we will see unfolding for us in the book of Joshua. Now, this is a very stirring scene, Deuteronomy chapter 31. Let me describe it for you. The people of Israel have been out in the wilderness now, free from the bondage of slavery for 40 years. In fact, very few of the original slaves, the original ex-slaves, are left. Now it's the next generation who are there, and in the wilderness. They've had their share of wilderness living. They're ready for something else. And Moses, their leader, is 120 years old. And if you were to see him, the thing that would strike you as remarkable is how young and vibrant and vigorous he looks. And so you'd be shocked, as the people of Israel were shocked, to hear what he had to say on this particular day. So picture him. He's standing now in front of 2 million people. He must have had one magnificent voice, or some cooperative rumor spreaders who carried the word to the back of the crowd. He spoke to this huge crowd, and Deuteronomy 31 says that he says this: I am 120 years old today. I am no longer able to come and go, and the Lord has said to me, you shall not cross this Jordan. It is the Lord your God who will cross ahead of you. He will destroy these nations before you, and you shall dispossess them. Joshua is the one who will cross ahead of you, just as the Lord has spoken. Jump down to verse 6. Moses speaking to all the people. Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or tremble at them, for the Lord your God is the one who goes with you. He will not fail you or forsake you. Then Moses called to Joshua and said to him, in the sight of all Israel, picture it now, this relatively young man called to stand before these 2 million people, and everyone hears Moses saying to Joshua, the new leader, be strong and courageous, for you shall go with this people into the land which the Lord has sworn to their fathers to give them, and you shall give it to them as an inheritance. And the Lord is the one who goes ahead of you. He will be with you. He will not fail you or forsake you. Do not fear or be dismayed. Verse 14, the Lord says to Moses when the speech is over, behold, the time for you to die is near. So call Joshua and present yourselves at the tent of meeting that I may commission him. So Moses and Joshua went and presented themselves at the tent of meeting. And the Lord appeared in the tent in a pillar of cloud, and the pillar of cloud stood at the doorway of the tent. And in verse 23, we see God now speaking to Joshua. God commissioned Joshua, the son of Nun, and said to him, be strong and courageous, for you shall bring the sons of Israel into the land which I swore to them, and I will be with you. Well, the people would be shocked to know that Moses, in such vigor and in apparently such good health, was now about to die. And they were shocked, I suppose, too, to realize that the thing he had devoted his entire life to would not be completed by him. And I think there's some irony in the words, the Lord will not fail you nor forsake you, because the people would not be able to help but conclude that somehow Moses was now failing them. Moses was now somehow forsaking them. And they hear from Moses, the Lord will not fail you. The Lord will not forsake you. The Lord will lead you into the land. Joshua will be the one who leads you into the land. Well, think about this man Joshua for a minute. There's only a few things we know about him. We know that he grew up, he was born and raised in Egypt as a slave. For the first many years of his life, probably the first 50 years of his life, they're all old men in this story, for the first 50 years of his life, he made bricks for the Pharaoh of Egypt and contributed to the architectural wonders of that kingdom. with no choice of his own. He simply worked as a slave for all those years. And then along came this miracle worker, Moses. And Moses miraculously showed himself to be the greatest man who had ever lived, according to Joshua and the people of Israel. Moses allowed the people to escape from slavery. Somehow God was able to use Moses to bring the people away from Pharaoh, to actually be given Pharaoh's permission to leave Egypt and to go across the Red Sea by a great miracle into the wilderness. And Joshua, step by step, graduated to the position of Moses' right-hand man. And for the period of about 40 years, he stayed close by Moses and experienced just about everything Moses experienced and watched everything that Moses watched and saw things from Moses' perspective. For the period of 40 years, he was Moses' right-hand man. He had been allowed to spy out the land with 11 other spies and came back with a report of what the Canaanite land was like. So for a while, he was the only one who had seen what the promised land was like. He had been there with 11 others. He was one of the only ones. And eventually all those other ones died, and he and Caleb were the only slaves permitted, or spies permitted, to go into the promised land. And then that entire generation represented by him died, and eventually there was only Joshua and Caleb left of the original group who had left Egypt. There was still a crowd of about 2 million Israelites, but only Joshua and his friend Caleb were left, the only ones who had tasted slavery and had seen the promised land. Joshua was a bit of a unique individual. And it's interesting, as we think of him being a young man, to realize that in reality he was probably 90 years old. But people were healthy in those days. They didn't eat a lot of sugared foods and empty carbohydrates, and he was remarkably healthy for a 90-year-old. Well, he was going to be in charge when Moses died. And if you look at Deuteronomy chapter 34, you see that Moses, sure enough, did die. Deuteronomy chapter 34, verse 5 says that Moses, the servant of the Lord, died there in the land of Moab, according to the word of the Lord. And verse 8 says that the sons of Israel wept for Moses in the plains of Moab 30 days before the days of weeping and mourning for Moses came to an end. And then verse 9 tells us that Joshua, the son of Nun, was filled with the spirit of wisdom, for Moses had laid his hands on him, and the sons of Israel began to listen to him and did as the Lord had commanded Moses. Well, Joshua was in quite a remarkable circumstance, a situation at this point in time, if you think about it. For 40 years, he had followed Moses around. He had followed the greatest man who ever lived around. I mean, in terms of performance and what Moses had been able to accomplish, he was undoubtedly the greatest man they'd ever seen. And Moses had set out for himself a great life work. He wanted to take the children of Israel out of Egypt and bring them into Canaan. And the greatest man who ever lived had not been able to do what he had set out to do. He had only done half the job. He had sure taken the people out of Egypt and brought them through the wilderness, but he was not permitted by God to complete the work that he had set out for himself to do, and he left his life work only half done. And the responsibility to do the other half, the half that he himself couldn't do, the responsibility to complete the tricky part of the job, fell to this man, Joshua. And there was Joshua in front of 2 million people who were mourning and weeping and crying their eyes out because the greatest man who ever lived has now died. And the one that had given them confidence and the one who had given them the reason to believe that they could go on was now gone. Joshua stood in front of 2 million people who were crying their eyes out and wondered what to do with this great big weepy mob. And then before him was the Jordan River. And of all things, it was the flood season, and the banks of the Jordan River were overflowing, and this was no small creek, this was a large river, and there weren't any bridges and no ferry services, and no one would likely allow him to use the ferry service if they knew what he had in mind. So behind him he had 2 million weepy people, and in front of him he had an overflowing river, and beyond the river was the city of Jericho and at least 30 other cities just like it, full, jammed, packed, full of angry Canaanites who had absolutely no intention of vacating the premises and allowing Joshua to move his people in. So Joshua was in what you say a bit of a sticky wicket. He had 2 million people who couldn't see him because they were crying so hard, and he had a river that needed to be crossed, and it was flooding, and he had 100 million angry Canaanites who had no intention of moving over. And Joshua needed to hear what the Lord said to him as we begin the book of Joshua. Let's look at it together. It came about after the death of Moses, the servant of the Lord, that the Lord spoke to Joshua, the son of Nun, Moses' servant. And here's what God said. Statement of the obvious. Moses, my servant, is dead. It hardly needed to be said, did it? I mean, that was the whole problem. Moses was gone. Now, therefore, arise, cross the Jordan, you and all this people, to the land which I'm giving to them, to the sons of Israel. Every place on which the sole of your foot treads, I've given it to you, just as I spoke to Moses. From the wilderness and this Lebanon, even as far as the great river, the river Euphrates, all the land of the Hittites, and as far as the great sea toward the setting of the sun, it will all be your territory. No man will be able to stand before you all the days of your life, Joshua. Just as I've been with Moses, I will be with you. I will not fail you or forsake you. Be strong and courageous. That's what Moses had said. For you shall give this people possession of the land which I swore to their fathers to give them. Only be strong and very courageous. Be careful to do according to all the law which Moses my servant commanded you. Don't turn from it to the right. Don't turn from it to the left, so that you may have success wherever you go. And this book of the law shall not depart from your mouth, but you shall meditate on it day and night, so that you may be careful to do according to all that is written in it. For then you will make your way prosperous, and then you will have success. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not tremble or to be dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. 3 times in this particular time in Joshua's life, the Lord says to him, be strong and be courageous. Once he throws in the word very. Be very courageous. And there's no question at all in our minds why Joshua was being called to be strong and courageous. If any man needed to be strong and courageous at any point in history, it was Joshua, with all these blubbering people behind him and this overflowing river in front of him and the angry Canaanites beyond the river. No question of why he needed strength and courage. But I think if you try to put yourself in Joshua's position, that there is a question of how he was to be strong and courageous. We've got no questions as to why, but there's a big question in terms of how to be strong and courageous. I mean, a person is only as strong as he is, right? So what good does it do for someone, even God, to come and say, be strong, as if he should be stronger than he already is? And a person only has as much courage as he has, so what good does it do to come to a person and say, so be courageous, as if he should summon up more courage than he already has? I think this is the question we should dwell on this morning. How does Joshua be strong and courageous? I mean, how do you respond to that? How do you say, yes, sir, and do what you're told when what you're told to do is be strong and courageous? I think it's an important question for us to resolve, because in many ways we are in a remarkably similar position, no matter who we are. I'm assuming when I say that all of us as Christians are for the most part not living up to our full potential. Whether we're doing pretty well as believers or not very well at all, it's probably safe to say that none of us are living the full potential that we could be living as Christians. So in many ways, we're all in the same sort of position as Joshua. Joshua started out as a slave to Pharaoh, and now through a painful process of 40 years, he's come to the very shores of the River Jordan. And beyond the River Jordan is the Promised Land, flowing with milk and honey, that had been the people's dream for a whole generation. And he was called now to get up and cross this Jordan and get on with the job of living in the land of milk and honey. He was given this assignment. And he needed some strength. And he needed some courage. Well, now think of us. In a similar way, many of us have done the very same thing. We started as slaves to sin. And through some particularly difficult situation or through some circumstance, we have been taken from this position of being slaves to sin, and we've been forgiven and brought out of that slavery to sin, and we've been shown something of the power to live a whole new life. But many of us are just as far as Joshua is. We're, so to speak, camped on the shores of a much better kind of life than we're living now. And if we could only summon up the strength and courage to get on with it, then we could cross the river and defeat Jericho and get on with the business of living a much better life than we're living now. I mean, we could live lives that bring more glory to God. And we could live lives that bring more peace and harmony to our families. We could live lives that draw more attention to God in the place that we work. We could be doing more than we're doing, couldn't we? We could be performing greater works of service and doing greater acts of sacrifice than we're right now involved in. And if someone were to ask you, why aren't you doing a better job of living the Christian life than you are doing, we might all say what Joshua would be tempted to say, well, I'm only doing as much as I can. I mean, I'm only so strong. I'm only so courageous. This is what you get when you've got what I've got to work with. Well, God says to Joshua, it's not good enough. Now be strong and be courageous. Be stronger than you are right now. Be more courageous than you are right now. Cross the river and get on with the business of living the life that I've destined you to live. And God says the same thing to us. And the question we need to resolve then is how? Not why. We know why we need more strength and courage. Strength to be better husbands or fathers, better wives or mothers, better citizens, better neighbors. Courage to be better witnesses and better sacrifices, more sacrificial in our giving and in our serving. We know why we need strength and courage. The trick is, how are we to be more strong? How are we to be courageous? Well, let me try to help you this way. The dictionary definition of the word strong is a help. You know what the dictionary says about strong? Strong means this. Strong means marked by great power. Marked by great power. Think about that. So when you're called upon to be strong, you're being called upon to be marked by great power. You're being called upon to be known as a person who's got a lot of power. What about courageous? Courageous, by dictionary definition, means characterized by the strength to venture, to persevere, or to withstand. Characterized by the strength to venture, to persevere, to withstand. So when we're called upon to be courageous, we're called upon to be characterized by enough strength to venture out, to persevere under, to withstand against whatever. What this brings me to see is that we don't respond to the commandment, be strong and courageous, by standing still. But when God says to Joshua or to us, be strong and courageous, he's calling us to get up and do something that demands strength and demands courage so that we can be marked by strength and marked by courage. When he says be strong and courageous, he's not asking Joshua to go, I'm strong, to summon it up from within and just sit there being strong. He's calling upon him to go out and do something that demands strength and so be marked by strength. What I'm trying to say is that the way God speaks to Joshua demands action. It demands action that demands strength and courage. He's saying, go out and do something that only a strong man can do. Go out and do something that only a courageous person could do. And we find ourselves getting to this remarkably simple situation where God is saying, go out and live a different life than you're living. Go ahead and find that you're strong enough to live that way. Let me try to illustrate it this way. If you can imagine being at home, maybe some of you are imagining that just now, in your easy chair, not a care in the world. You're just sitting there in your living room, minding your own business, doing whatever it is you do in your living room, and all of a sudden, ding dong, the doorbell goes, and you go to the door, and there you see something that you don't often see these days, a door-to-door vitamin salesman. And he begins to light into his pitch. He tells you about these amazing super vitamins that he's selling. You only need to take one a day. And you say, why should I? And he says, well, in only 7 days, you'll find remarkable results. You say, well, all right, tell me about them. You're not impressed. He says, well, one a day for 7 days, and I can guarantee that you'll be faster than a speeding bullet, stronger than a locomotive, and able to leap tall buildings at a single bound. And you say, no kidding? And he says, or your money back, guaranteed. So you decide to go for it. They're not very expensive. You buy one bottle, and one time a day for the next 7 days, you take one of these super vitamins. Well, on the 7th day, if the door-to-door salesman is not a charlatan, very few of them are, you are, in fact, then stronger than a locomotive, faster than a speeding bullet, and able to leap tall buildings at a single bound, right? I mean, you are. Now, what if someone who means a whole lot to you comes to you 7 days later and says, I want you to do 3 things for me. If you love me, you'll do just 3 things. And you say, fine. What would you like me to do? She says, just 3 things. I want you to be fast, be strong, and be jumpy. Well, now, if you've been taking these vitamins for 7 days and the vitamins work, then you are faster than a speeding bullet, stronger than a locomotive, and able to leap tall buildings at a single bound, right? You are. But if you're called to be fast, be strong, and be jumpy, you've got to go ahead and do something or it's all meaningless. I mean, you could have the strength and the speed and the jumpiness to be everything that this person is calling on to be, but it's all meaningless unless you go ahead and do something. And in fact, you can't do anything to make it meaningful unless you come up with 4 things fast, right? There's 4 things you need. A bullet, a gun, a train, and a skyscraper, right? But if you get a bullet, a gun, a train, and a skyscraper, then you can outrace the bullet, and you can outwrestle the train, and you can leap over the tall building without getting a run in your pantyhose, and then you are stronger than a locomotive, faster than a speeding bullet, and able to leap tall buildings in a single bound, right? So the vitamin salesman has come through, and he's giving you the strength and courage, but it doesn't mean a thing unless you do something that demands strength and courage, unless you do something that demands speed, strength, and jumpiness. And I think Joshua's in the same position. Where was the strength and courage to come from? Well, God was going to supply it. But it wouldn't mean a thing and it wouldn't do a bit of good unless Joshua got on with the business of doing something that demanded strength and courage. And you and I are in the very same position. if we're not living to our full potential. And I think it's safe to guess that none of us are. I looked at myself this week as I studied this text, and I thought, well, true enough. Here I am. I'm camped on the banks of the river of a whole new life. And if I would cross that river, whatever that means, and fight Jericho, whatever that means, and get on with the business, if I would arise and cross, then I could begin living on a whole different plane than I'm living now. And all that I lack to start living on this new plane is strength and courage. And God is supplying the strength and courage to anyone willing to get up and get on with it. God is calling us to do what he was calling Joshua to do, to get up and get on with the job of doing something that demands the strength and courage that he will supply so that we will be strong and courageous. That's all I'm trying to say. When God says be strong and courageous, he's calling us to do something. He's calling us to do something that demands strength so that we'll find the strength is there. He's calling us to do something that demands courage so that we will be characterized by courage. In fact, if you break it down into tiny steps, there's 5 things we have to do. In any area of life, there's 5 little things we have to do in order to get on with the job of being strong and courageous. They're very simple. First of all, we've got to know what to do. That's the first step, know what to do. And then we've got to know how to do it, because there's a wrong way to do every right thing. So we've got to know what to do, and we've got to know how to do it. And then, this is very important, we've got to know that we can do it. You've got to know that you can do it. Whatever it is you have to do, however it is you have to do it, you have to come to the point of knowing that you can do it, that it's within your limits. And then you've got to decide to do it, and then you've got to do it. And if you can go through those 5 steps in any area of your life, then bingo, you're living, wrong sort of church to say bingo, right? You're living a whole new life, okay? And in any area of life, you can live on a higher plane if you just do those 5 things. Know what to do, know how to do it, know that you can do it, decide to do it, and do it. All right? Now, Joshua was in that position. First of all, he was told what to do. That's verse 2. Arise and cross this Jordan. No small thing. Jordan was flooding, and there were no bridges. And he had 2 million people, and many of them did not have their Red Cross lifeguard certificate. Many of them could not swim. So he had a bit of a job. How do you get the 2 million people across the raging, flooding river? Nevertheless, he was told what to do. What to do is in verse 2. Arise, cross this Jordan, you and all the people, to the land which I'm giving to them. And secondly, he was told how to do it. That comes from verses 7 and 8. We see in verse 7, be careful to do according to all the law which Moses my servant commanded you. Don't turn from it to the right or to the left, so that you may have success. He said, this book of the law shall not depart from your mouth. Don't stop talking it over. Don't stop meditating upon it. But you shall meditate on it day and night. You know that the word meditate originally means to mutter to yourself? That's why he says, don't let this word depart out of your mouth. He says, keep muttering my word over and over, you know. Thou shalt not steal, thou shalt observe the Lord's day, all this. He said, mutter about my word. Don't let it out of your mouth. Meditate on it day and night so that you may be careful to do according to all that is written in it. For then you'll make your way prosperous, and then you'll have success. So that's how to do it. Do it according to the book. Do it God's way. Joshua was given the books of Moses, Genesis to Deuteronomy, and told, do it this way. So he's told how to do it. And then he was told, number 3, that he could do it. That comes from verse 5 and verse 9. God says to him, no man will be able to stand before you all the days of your life. That's good news, because there were about 100 million Canaanites who wanted to be the man who stood against him. He said, not one of them will be able to stand against you all the days of your life. As I've been with Moses, I will be with you. I will not fail you or forsake you. You want to know something neat about that verse, something I learned this week. The word fail, in its most literal sense, means drop. And what God is saying is, don't worry, I won't drop you. Go across the Jordan. I won't drop you. Go into Canaan. Go up against Jericho. Around the city 7 times, right? I'll never drop you. What he's saying is, I'll carry you. I'll be your source of strength and courage. Get up, cross. I won't drop you. I'll hold you up. I won't forsake you. And then verse 9. Haven't I commanded you to be strong and courageous? So don't tremble and don't be dismayed. For the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. That's step 3. Joshua came to see that he could do it. He was able to do it because God was not going to drop him. God was not going to fail him or forsake him. He was going to equip him and empower him to do all that he was called upon to do. Step number 4 is decide to do it. And you see that decision made in verses 10 and 11. Joshua commanded the officers of the people. They had to delegate authority in those days. There was 2 million in the congregation, so there were officers who had sub-congregations, care groups, I guess. And he said to all the officers, pass through the midst of the camp and command the people, saying, prepare provisions for yourselves, for within 3 days you are to cross this Jordan to go and to possess the land which the Lord your God has given you to possess it. I wonder if Joshua was able to be very convincing when he said that. Here's the river. It's overflowing its banks. People are getting their tent pegs wet as the river comes up over the banks. And Joshua says to the leaders, tell everybody to pack a lunch. 3 days from now, man, we're crossing this thing. It's in flood. I mean, there's no hope of it drying up, no hope of it getting shallow. He says, pack a lunch, pack up your provisions. We're on our way. He decided that he was going to do it. He didn't know how, did he? He just figured he could do it. And step number 5 is doing it. And that begins next week. Stay tuned. We see in chapter 2 and all the other chapters of the book of Joshua how Joshua goes ahead and he does it. He arises and he crosses the Jordan and he begins to live the life that God calls him to live. Now, you and I are in the same position as Joshua. Our study of the book is based on that premise. In some way, at least, we're only on the shores of the life that God called us to live. We haven't really begun to live it. And I want you to think of a particular instance or a particular case in which that's true. Think of the ways in which we could be realizing more of our potential and living a higher quality of life than we're living now. Can you think of something? Some of us could be presiding over more loving homes. We can make our homes a whole lot more Christ-like than they are. We can make our homes characterized by more Christ-like love. Some of us could be a more effective witness at work. Some of you salesmen are seeing different people all the time. Now, others of you are seeing the same people day after day. We could be more effective in drawing attention to God than we are. It'll take strength and courage, but we could do it. Some of us are in need of a more disciplined personal life, whether it comes to the spiritual disciplines of meditating on the Word and prayer, whether it comes to the physical disciplines of watching what you eat and exercising and looking after your bodily health. We could be living more disciplined personal lives than we are. And some of us are in real desperate need of a more disciplined mind. Our minds are still, unfortunately, in the gutter, even though we've been delivered from the gutter. We still have minds that would embarrass us if we had little bubbles above our heads and every thought and word and picture that came into our minds was displayed for people to see. Whatever it is, a more disciplined mind, a more disciplined personal life, a more effective witness, a more loving home, there's a number of ways in which we could be living better lives, richer lives, fuller and deeper lives than we're living now. And in just that way, we're like Joshua, being called to get on with the job. And we've got to do the same 5 things. We've got to learn what to do. We've got to learn how to do it. We've got to know that we can do it. And then we've got to decide to do it and get on with doing it. Let's take the first one just as an example, a more loving home, and see how these 5 things apply. I'd like my home to be more loving than it is. I'll tell you, I left my wife home sick today. She had the flu, and so I was the one who washed the kids and fed the kids, dressed the kids, and got the kids to church. But I was very aware of the fact that I was also the one who was going to lead the warm-up class and preach the sermon, and that tends to occupy my mind on Sunday morning. So this was a great way for me to realize that what we need is a more loving home. And that's going to start with me being a more loving person, being less concerned about the fact that I'm called upon to sacrifice some time and energy for someone else's welfare. All right, so I want a more loving home. So first of all, to get a more loving home, to live a fuller life in this particular area, first of all, I need to know what to do. And that comes down to doing loving things. So, for example, a good thing for me to do would be to take out the garbage. Now, this is a pretty widespread application. Anybody can improve the quality of his home by volunteering to take out the garbage. I mean, it's got to be taken out. Someone's got to do it, right? And you could be the one who brings a more Christ-like love into your home by being the one to sign up for this sordid chore. Take out the garbage. That's what to do. If I want my home to be more loving, I ought to volunteer to do that when I go home. Now, the second thing is how to do it. You know, there's a way to do right things in a totally worthless way. I mean, you can ruin any good job by doing it the wrong way, right? So I rip into the kitchen. All right, where's the garbage? Okay, I'll take it. Oh, fine, I'll take it out. Why are there no new garbage bags? Come on, who does the shopping around here? Okay, get out of the way. I'm taking out the garbage, can't you see? So there's a loving thing done in a totally unloving way, right? So I got to know what to do, and I got to know how to do it, right? I mean, I make my wife breakfast in bed. Here you go, eat it, right? If you don't do it in the right way, there's no point in doing it, right? And a whole lot of us get to step 1, we do the right thing. But we let everyone know that we know we're doing the right thing and that we're bugged that we have to do it. So we've got to learn what to do, and we've got to learn how to do it. And the Bible tells us to do things humbly and wholeheartedly and gently. So I don't just have to take out the garbage this week, but I got to take out the garbage while softly whistling a gospel song. All right? So now I know what to do, and I know how to do it. So step number 3 is the trick. I got to know that I can do it. I come home from a day, I've listened to 3 or 4 people's problems, and I'm tired. And what I don't want is a kitchen full of garbage that needs to be taken out, right? But I know what to do, and I know how I should do it. So I got to know that I can. Now, where am I going to come up with whatever it takes to softly whistle a gospel song while taking out the garbage? Well, I need to be just the man Joshua was and listen to the Lord saying to me, Wilkins, I will be with you, and I won't drop you. I won't fail you. I won't forsake you. Tiptoe into the kitchen. Pucker up your lips. Whistle a little tune, and take out that garbage in a gracious way. And your home will not only be less garbage full, but it will be more loving because you've done a loving thing in a loving way. I need to be very sure of the fact that I can do these things. And where I come up with that certainty is to know that the Lord will be with me wherever I go and will allow me to do what I must do in the way I must do it. Because there's always one person more concerned that I do the right thing in the right way than I am. And that's the Lord. He would far rather see me be a loving husband and father than I would. So I know He'll be there. And He won't fail me. And He won't forsake me. And the same thing applies when I try to be an effective witness to my neighbors. And when I try to be more disciplined in my personal life. And I try to be more disciplined in my thought life. No matter what I try to do, if it's the right thing, and I try to do it in the right way, there's always one person more interested in seeing me pull it off than me. And that's God, who whispers strongly to my heart, I won't drop you. Go ahead and do it. So when God says to Joshua, be strong and courageous, He's saying, be marked by great power. Be characterized by the strength to persevere and to withstand, to venture out. He's saying, go ahead and do it. Try me and watch how able I am to allow you to do the right thing in the right way at the right time. God is calling us to live on a higher plane, to rise up and cross the flooded rivers, whatever those barriers are that keep us from living this higher life, to cross those rivers and to get on with the job of living a more Christ-like life, a more Christ-glorifying life. And we can do it if we recognize that He'll do it through us. But it'll take our backs bending down towards the garbage and our arms picking the garbage up and carrying it out and our lips puckering to whistle. And we've got to supply the parts, right? And the Lord supplies the strength and the courage. Now, one thing the people had learned through their 40 years in the wilderness was this exact lesson. And they refer to it in their response to Joshua. So let's just look at verses 16 to 18 as we wind down. They answered Joshua. The people responded to Joshua's decision to move. And they said, all that you have commanded us, we will do. And wherever you send us, they looked at the river nervously out of the corner of their eyes. Wherever you send us, we will go. Just as we obeyed Moses in all things, so we will obey you. Only, may the Lord your God be with you as He was with Moses. Anyone who rebels against your command and does not obey your words and all that you command him shall be put to death. Only, be strong and courageous. They said, we'll obey you. We'll even take care of the guys who refuse to obey you. But please, may the Lord be with you. So please be strong and courageous. You see, they came to understand from Moses that it wasn't Moses doing these great things. It was the Lord doing those things through him. And if Joshua was to be a success, it was because he was to be strong enough and courageous enough to do what God was calling him to do. And that strength and that courage could only come from one place, from the Lord. So if the Lord would be with them, then he would be strong enough and courageous enough to pull off this impossible dream of inhabiting the already inhabited promised land. And we are in the very same position. Paul the Apostle, writing to the Ephesians, assures them that they are able to accomplish and to do remarkable things, things beyond anything we can imagine. As individuals, we are in the same position. As a church family, wondering whether or not we dare try to build this balcony and expand our parking lot, wondering whether we can ever get to the point where we knock the walls out and build a sanctuary that seats double what we can presently seat, and building out a Christian education wing on the back. As a church family, as a family, as an individual, we stand on the shore of accomplishing great things. And the Word of God to us is this, that He is able to do exceeding abundantly beyond all that we ask or think, according to the power that works within us. If the Lord our God is with us, then we can do exceeding abundantly beyond all that we ask or think. In our thought life, in our personal life, in our families, in our neighborhoods, in our church, in our community, beyond all that we ask or think. Exceeding abundantly beyond all that we ask or think, according to His power, His strength, and His courage that works through us. So as individuals, and as families and as one church family, we need to look to him constantly as our strength and our courage. We can be strong because he is our strength. And we can be courageous because he is our courage and will be as we commit ourselves to do the work that he calls us to do. So let's do it. Let's arise and cross this Jordan and get out into that promised land of milk and honey that God's calling us to live in. Let's pray.